Here's a hard truth that you probably don't want to hear. It might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. Whatever has happened in your life, things that have literally happened to you, it may very well have been things that you couldn't control and you couldn't have stopped if you wanted to. But that doesn't change the fact that it is now your responsibility to deal with the fallout. It might sound harsh, but my guest today argues that that is the only mindset that will allow you to start to overcome these obstacles and set you free in the long run. Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Leviton, and I help high achievers just like you who feel stuck bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Traditional self-help doesn't work. It's either too rigid, too generic, or too overwhelming. My approach is different. I simplify change, making it so easy it can't not happen. Using my easier framework, I'll help you create habits, routines, and behaviors that stick for good, so you can stop struggling and start thriving. It's that easy. Today, my guest is Tony Schmaltz, known as the Upgrade Coach, author of the book Wake the Bleep Up, and host of the podcast by the same name. Tony has made it his mission to help 10 million people upgrade their lives by breaking free of their programming and taking full ownership of the highs and the lows. In this episode, you'll hear Tony explain why it's not your fault is not the same as it's not your responsibility. We'll go over the same exercise that Tony gives his clients that you can use to see if you're stuck in a blame-complain loop. We'll teach you how to break lifelong programming and why that's the key to unlocking unlimited confidence and growth. And you'll learn why acknowledging others, especially the people who frustrate you most, is the ultimate confidence hack. This is a conversation about responsibility, ownership, and most importantly, freedom, and what it really means to wake the bleep up. So get ready to upgrade your life and enjoy this conversation with Tony Schmaltz. What does it mean to take full ownership of your life?
Well, that really means to take ownership of where you're at. So understand that where you're at today is a result of all the choices you've made in your life. You know, whether you agree now that they were a good choice or a bad choice, you are here today because of those choices. And so taking ownership is understanding that what you have today, who you are today, is a result of all those choices that you've made. Jack Canfield likes to say, do you ever complain about anything? Yeah, of course, I'm human. Well, then you're not taking 100% ownership of your life. So taking ownership of your life is not only understanding that you're here because of the choices you've made, it's understanding that there's really no reasons in your life to complain. We're going to do it. We're human. But when you complain, you're playing the victim card. You're not really taking ownership over yourself.
So I hear that. I love that. And I would say that I'm inclined to agree. But there's also a part of me, maybe the human part, that hears that and goes, yeah, but what about the parts of my life that I didn't choose? What about the parts that are the situation? It's where I was born. It's what happened with the economy. It's whoever's president or a million other things that are, for better or for worse, outside of our direct control. How do I meld those two?
So really, the things that are outside of your control are just that, outside of your control. So what can you do? Let's say use the economy. Let's say the economy is going bad. So you can make a decision, or I can make a decision, or somebody listening can make a decision that, hey, I'm going to go out and take on a side job, or I'm going to go out and grow a business, or I'm going to do something to make some extra income because I'm struggling so bad in this economy. So there's still always a choice. Taking ownership is still knowing that, hey, guess what? That is outside of my control. But what I can control is what I do with my own time and with myself. So, hey, if I need extra income because the economy's bad, hey, I can go drive for Uber, or I can sell stuff off in my garage, or I can take on a side gig. Or if I own a business, I can find ways to grow that business so that I can create more income to overcome the struggles of the economy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I appreciate this because it comes down to something listeners know I talk about a lot, which is agency. And do we have agency over our own life? Are we in the driver's seat, or is life happening to us? And are we the passenger of life and things are just kind of happening to us as we go? Hey, real quick, we'll be back to the show in just a few seconds. But right now, I just have to tell you about my free weekly newsletter. If you want to join the thousands of change seekers just like you who get a curated list each week of 5 educational, informative, and inspiring pieces of content to help you on your quest for change, then click the link in the notes that says free newsletter right now. You'll get signed up for free tips that will make your change journey easier, sent straight to your inbox every Friday. All you have to do is click free newsletter in whatever app you're listening on. Okay, now back to the show. And that is, I think, the feeling that leads to, as you said, that victim mentality where it's like this woe is me thing, or it's not my fault and it's out of my control. And from what I'm understanding, as you're putting it, all of that factually may be true. It might not be your fault. It actually might be out of your control. And yet there is always something that you can do within your own control right now.
That's correct. It's not about pointing the finger at something that you may not have control of. It's pointing the finger at, I don't even like saying pointing the finger, but it's taking ownership over yourself of what you can control. Those things, you're right, out of your control, can't do anything about it. Yeah, they may affect you, although you have the choice of taking ownership and taking steps to counter whatever that is. The one example I like to use when it comes to personal ownership or personal responsibility is, a friend of mine came to me one time and he said, "Hey, I got rear-ended. It's okay though. It's not my fault, or it's not my responsibility." And I said, yes, it is your responsibility. I said, yes, if you talk to any officer of the law or you talk to any insurance company, they're going to say it's not. But I'm saying it is your responsibility. And he looks at me funny and he says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you chose to get up at that time in the morning. You chose to leave your house at that time on your way to work or grocery store or whatever. You chose to take that particular route to your destination. You chose to stop at that stop sign at that time for that person to be able to rear end you." Now, granted, you're always going to stop at a stop sign, but all those choices together, any of those choices are 30 seconds earlier or later, or a minute earlier or later, you're not there to get rear-ended. So it's still the responsibility of the decisions that we've made land us in the particular situation that we're in.
So I understand that. And again, I could hear that, but it's still part of me feels where it's like, okay, but like, it's really not my fault. So why, in your opinion, is it so important to make that distinction? Like, what difference does it make if it is his responsibility? He still got rear-ended, right? Like you said, he was going to stop at that stop sign. Like, what is the distinction, or what happens once you make that distinction?
Well, so the distinction is just that it's understanding that your choices have led you to be where you're at. And only then, when you understand that, can you really take ownership. The point I'm making when I tell that story, especially when I shared that story with him, was that it was the steps you took that led you to that situation. Just like where we are in life. Like, I could be a multimillionaire right now. Well, I am. I could be a lot better off now than I am if I'd made different decisions 5 years ago or 2 years ago. But the decisions I made then, or even 10 years ago, have led me to where I'm at now. It's a stack up of all those decisions we've made in our lives. Any one decision's made differently, and we could be on a completely different path.
How does that understanding affect you personally? Like, when do you see that come to play into your life? Or is there any times where you see that and you remind yourself of that and it changes the decisions that you would make?
Absolutely. Actually, just happened today, believe it or not. I'm working with somebody, a client right now, who doesn't happen often, but actually frustrated me a little bit. And I got off the call and I was talking to my wife about it a little bit afterwards. And she was like, "You know what? You knew right from the start that you were questioning right from the start whether you should take on this client or not. You saw something in this person. However, you made the decision to take this person on, and this is the result." And I'm like, "You're right. You're right." So I have to, don't get me wrong. Again, we're human. Welcome to planet Earth. I have to constantly remind myself, just like I do with my clients or other people, "Hey, by the way, I'm here in this situation because of the decision I made here." Great. Okay. And so when you recognize that, then you understand that the past is a past and it's just a path forward, because that's all we have is now forward. Behind us, we can learn from it, but we can't change it. If somebody invents a time machine, let me know. I'd love to go back and change a few things. Although, unfortunately, at this point, we can't. We have from today forward. We can understand that we're here today because of choices we've made, but all we have is today and moving forward.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And I very much of the same philosophies in life and in my coaching. And this podcast listeners know specifically the now. As you just said, we don't have a time machine to go backwards, but also we don't have a time machine to go forwards. You can never live in the future. The
Mhm.
future is always, if right now the future is, and now the future is ahead of us again, and now the future,
Right.
you can never catch it. It's the dragon that's always getting out ahead of you.
Right.
So the reality is the only thing that ever exists is the now. There
Right.
is no past, there is no present. The past only exists in our theoretical memories, which we know are flawed, and the future only exists in guessing, summation, a dream, or whatever else. So focusing on the now is the only thing, and taking that ownership, taking that control. As you said, it's not my fault, but it is my responsibility. Right? I love all of these notes. And then I think about what is the type of person who's able to see this or hear this and put it into action, because I think it's easy to hear what you're saying and go, yes, I can nod my head along as Tony's going, well, everything's your responsibility and you are where you are because of all the decisions that you made. And yet I think it's far and few between the amount of people who will take that and understand what to even do with it, or to go the next step and using that to their advantage. Because once we have that, maybe it unlocks something or it gives us a new opportunity, but it doesn't automatically put us into action. So what is the next step, or what do people need in your experience of working with leaders and working with entrepreneurs and ultra successful people? What is the difference maker between the people who see this and then run with it versus the people who stay stuck?
So great question. And the people who actually move with this are ones who take action and take accountability. And usually it's accountability from somebody else, whether it's myself as their coach or spouse or partner or friend. I usually have people start with every time, and you're not gonna catch them all. So every time you catch yourself blaming something or someone or complaining, write it down real quick, or take a note in your phone, take a voice message. Oh, I just complained about X, or I just blamed so and so, and take that and make a list of that at the end of the week. This is how I've done it with clients. At the end of the week, which is usually a day or two before our next session, I want you to go through that list and say, how could I have addressed this differently? How could I have looked at this? So I blame this person. Am I really mad at that person, or is it something that I could have done differently, or I could have thought differently? It takes practice. Nobody's going to get the first time. The first time people look at this list and they're like, no, that was legit. I don't know what you're talking about. and then we go through it to get the list together and we're like, hey, what happened that made you this mad at this person or made you frustrated? One of the comments I like to tell people is there's no such thing as a bad day. There's typically a moment or two, maybe a little more, maybe a little less in the day. And we tend to go, oh, it's such a bad day. And we hang on to it for the rest of the day. When if you look back, it was one moment in time or two that caused you to feel upset the rest of the day. Whereas if we can take a step back and recognize, hey, that one bad moment is over, the rest of my day is actually great, or could be great if I let it be. And it's that kind of thinking. But again, it takes practice. It usually takes 2 to 6 or sometimes more weeks, depending on who I'm working with, to get to that. But when you see that light bulb go off, it is like that. It's people can get it faster than others, but when they do, it's like a light switch. All of a sudden, you see these people go from negative Nellies or victims playing the victim card to holy crap, this person has now become an owner of their life. And that doesn't mean they've eliminated complaints and blames, but they've recognized it now, and they're turning that corner into a different life. One that's one of more positive thinking, more apt to succeeding, more apt to better relationships, and just man, I've seen it so many times. It's just I get goosebumps thinking about it.
So you said it could take 2 weeks, 6 weeks, any amount of time, but it's not an automatic thing, right? Well,
No.
we can agree on that, where it's not just like, hey, every day isn't bad. There's no such thing as a bad day. Even on your worst days, it was really just one or two negative experiences that you had that kind of tainted the whole day. Why then does it take so long? Like, why can't we just shut that off and realize, like, oh, like today was a good day?
Well, that's a whole other topic. It's actually the first chapter in my latest book. It's called "Forget the Programming," because we have been programmed throughout our entire lives, whether it's our parents, whether it's our pastors or priests at church, it's our teachers in school. We've been programmed to think a certain way. And a part of that is thinking the worst or thinking negative or being afraid, where we tend not to take risks, or we're afraid of what's going to happen next, or fear of what's to come, we're afraid of the future. And so trying to break that programming is what takes longer for others than it does for some. Some it's quick, some it's not. But first it's recognizing that you are programmed. We all are. It's everybody. And it's just the way we were from growing up. They say by roughly age 7, most kids have developed their personality based on the people around them, their parents, their aunts, uncles, friends, etc. And so it's all those years of programming that you have to kind of break through in order to get past that and on to the next level.
So we have all of this programming that's built into us from our parents, from our schools, from the TV, from now phones, all of the everywhere, which I think one is an important thing to highlight in general for those listening. We really, at this point in human evolution, are no longer just individuals. Like, we are a amalgamation of everything around us. We use slang that we heard on the internet, and memes are a thing. I think it's just an interesting way to look at things. But now, if we want to start to peel away from that and start to say, okay, like, the programming that's been there hasn't been serving me. It's what keeps most people stuck. It's why most people live average, middle of the road lives. And I want something better than that for myself. I want to be bigger than that. I want to break out of that. It takes a level, I think, of confidence to be able to do something different, to go against the norm. This is why most people go with the herd. We've all seen the picture of the school of fish swimming one way and then the one fish swimming in the opposite direction, or something like that, or, you know, 1,000 white cows and one brown cow, or whatever, you know, dumb visualization you want to put on it. But the point is that it's hard to do that stuff. And it takes a certain level of confidence to be able to stand up and say, no, I don't like this. I don't think this is right. And yet I think that that's where confidence comes from, where it's like, once you do that, once you've stood up to the bully, or you've stood up to the crowd, or you've stood up to your parents, or someone said that's never going to work and then you've tried it anyway and it has worked, or you've thought to yourself, there's no way I can do this, but you tried anyway and then you did it and it worked. It's like, then you build confidence.
Yes.
But how do you start that process when you don't have the confidence to begin with?
I love this one. I love this one because this is one that so many people I know that you would think, talking to them on the surface, they exude confidence, but inside they don't. And they like to tell me I lack confidence. I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have got that from you. One of the first things I like to help people work on when it comes to expanding their confidence, because you're right, once you take action on something that makes you afraid, that's going to boost your confidence. But getting to that point is even a challenge. And so the first thing I like to have people do is start acknowledging the things that you do already. We're so hell-bent on beating ourselves up. Oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not as good looking as that person. We're so hell-bent on beating ourselves up for what we don't like about ourselves that we forget about the things that are good about ourselves. And so I encourage people, in fact, I assign people to start keeping it an acknowledgement journal and doing it every night. Every night at the end of the day, I want you to acknowledge everything that you accomplished for that day. It's accomplishment journal. I'm sorry, not an acknowledgement journal. It's the same, similar concept, but don't forget the little things. Like, hey, I did 2 loads of laundry today. I went to the grocery store. I picked up the kids from school. I drove to work. I worked 8 hours. I came home. Those are all things that as people, we tend to take for granted. And those are not on our normal checklist because we do them every day. We're in the tunnel vision. So when you start acknowledging those things, you look at that list and you're like, holy crap, I got a lot done today. I'm going to do more tomorrow. And so by recognizing all of the things that you're actually doing, that in itself helps build confidence and motivation to go do more. And that's another one of those light switch moments. It usually, again, it takes a few days usually, because people at first are like, they'll write 4 or 5 things. They won't write the doing the laundry. They won't write the going to the grocery store. But as you go through these sessions with them, you're like, hey, did you go to the grocery store this week? Did you do laundry? Did you cook dinner? Did you make breakfast? Did you pack your lunch for work? And they start adding up and they start seeing it. They're like, wow. Yeah. Didn't that account for like 3 or 4 or 5 hours of your day? Or if you're going to work, 12 hours of your day? And they're like, wow, I really did get a lot done today. And then that starts changing. And then you start seeing the eyes widen and the smile comes out. And they're like, yeah, let's do some more. Let's keep going. And the rock starts rolling.
Yeah, it's funny you kind of mixed up acknowledgement and accomplishment there, but I think it's the same thing because it's just acknowledging yourself for the accomplishments that are
Right,
so
right.
easy to be swept under the rug. And I've done many episodes on this in the past. My listeners know about celebrating small wins, and
Mhm.
that I think one of the biggest things that holds people back from real success is that they don't celebrate those little wins, and then the only thing that they can get excited about is the big win, but because those come so few and far between, they fizzle out and they burn out before that ever happens. Whereas if you learn to celebrate the small wins, from folding the laundry to going to work to whatever other thing that is able to be celebrated, there's nothing too small,
Right.
that's what gives you that extra little boost, that extra little oomph, that it's what keeps you in the game long enough to get to receive that big win. It's not that those little, because I think it's easy for people listening to, or again myself, anyone, to go like, well, like what the hell does doing the laundry have to do with X, Y, or Z? And it doesn't, except that now instead of being the person who says every time I try I fail, it's like, well, no, we have data to back this up. Here's all the times that you've succeeded in the last 24 hours, in the last week, in the
Right.
last month, and all of a sudden it starts to stack the deck in your favor. So
Yeah.
as you're doing that with clients, it's easy to overlook those little things, and we start to say, all right, we want to keep that accomplishment journal and see all these small places that we've been winning, that's building confidence, that's getting them out of that negativity
Mhm.
that they've been stuck in. What's the next step that you take them on?
Start acknowledging others, especially people that normally frustrate you. Find something positive there, because typically when you ask somebody the question, and really when you get down to it, especially somebody that frustrates you, it's usually just one thing. And so you can almost always find something positive about any person, especially somebody that you normally dislike. And when you start acknowledging that, especially to that person's face, they get excited that you've acknowledged them, and they typically want to reciprocate and acknowledge you back. They'll find something positive about you, which then goes to keep building that confidence. You build that confidence initially because you're making somebody else feel good about themselves. And in turn, they typically turn around and make you feel better about yourself. And one of the things I like to share with people is, in our world in general, a person can do 99 out of 100 things right, but typically the only thing we hear about is the one that we did wrong. And it's typically the one thing we beat ourselves up about too. When we start acknowledging with ourselves and others those 99 other things, man, that confidence goes through the roof, both with those people around you and yourself. And watch your relationships grow, watch how your teams come together, watch how you come together, and just the sky's the limit from there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you kind of flip it around and make it more of an outward thing too. Because going back to the point that I made just a little while ago, we're not just solitary people anymore,
Mhm.
and we weren't supposed to be. We are societal creatures. We are, regardless of how we feel right now. Like everyone wants to be an individual, and that's important. But we
Right.
are just humans, and humans need that social interaction. So as much as it's important, I think, to be introspective and shine the light back on ourselves, I also always appreciate when we're looking at how does this affect others and how can we interact better with others. So I really love that you're taking that route with your clients and looking both internally and externally. And I know that you have a podcast as well, Tony, which I'll link to in the show notes for anyone who wants to check out more of Tony's stuff. It's called "Wake the Bleep Up," and let it be a bleep for now,
Yes.
for you guys. Listeners can infer what that means. My question is, what is it that you want people to wake up to?
So that's actually the title of my book as well, and that's what triggered the podcast. And it's a little bit everything. Like I said, I start with forget the programming, and then I move into separating yourself from your electronics. In fact, that chapter is called throw your laptop and phone off the highest building. And although I start with the first sentence going, no, don't really do that. I couldn't do it either. But it's more about limiting the time. It's more about breaking free even though I only have one chapter that's called Forget the Program, the theme of the book is really around that. Break free of what you've been taught, break free of what you've been told. You are your own individual. You can be, and you literally can be anyone you want to be, with certain limits, certain exceptions, of course. But if you want to be super successful, you can be. If you want to be just a better father, better husband, better partner, you can be. Whatever those things are that you really desire, you can. But don't let those things that people are around you are, people pull dump trucks full of garbage and dump them into your ear. If you can just block your ear real quick and keep that from going in, hey, the world is your oyster. You can make whatever you want of yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it kind of circles back to where we started in the beginning with this conversation. It kind of leads directly into my next question. It might be the same, but it might be different. But these are the same two questions that I ask all my guests when I start to wrap up. The first is, what is the change that you want to see in the world?
So I've been nicknamed, and I now refer to myself as the upgrade coach. And I want everybody to upgrade their lives. And that means a little bit different to everybody. And so I don't know if you're familiar with the wheel of life, but it's an evaluation, a self-evaluation of the different areas of your life. You've got personal, you've got finance, you've got fitness, you've got mindset, you've got career/business, but all of these are self evaluations. And what you do is you fill them out, you scale of 1 to 10. There's each of these are spokes on a wheel, and you'll tend to see a flat spot. You'll have a flat tire, basically. And so to most people, upgrading their lives is making that flat spot whole. So you have a whole wheel again. And so really, my vision is to help 10 million people upgrade their lives with the written, verbal, and visual means, whether it's the podcast, whether it's my videos, my webinars, my books, my writings. I want 10 million people to upgrade their lives based on what I share with them.
Yeah, I love that. And so this next question then leads directly from there, which I think you'll like, is if you had one action step that listeners can take right now today, as soon as this episode ends, as soon as they take their headphones out, to upgrade their life or simply to make any change that they're making in their life just a little bit easier, what would it be?
So recognize anytime somebody is saying something negative to you, whether it's in social media, somebody in person, a boss, recognize that, stop it, put that plug in your ear and go and hear it for what it really is. Not the negative part, but what it really is. And then, like we talked about earlier, I encourage everybody to write down everything that you complain about or who you blame in the next week and go back and go, how could I have handled that differently?
If you're really passionate about making this change stick, then I just have to remind you about my free weekly newsletter. Don't miss out on joining the thousands of change seekers just like you who get a curated list each week of 5 educational, informative, and inspiring pieces of content that will help you on your quest for change. Go to the notes of whatever app you're listening on and click the link that says free newsletter now. And you'll be signed up to get free tips sent straight to your inbox every Friday that will help make your change journey easier. All you have to do is click free newsletter right now. Go to that link, and I'll see you back here every Tuesday and Thursday for new episodes of Change Made Easy.